It should be impossible to think about getting older without thinking how much it's going to cost, because unfortunately health, wealth and getting older are all intricately linked. But it is still possible to live exactly the way you want to, regardless of what happens to you. This is why we've put this film together. It's a way of answering the questions that are so commonly asked, but actually questions that people are often quite afraid to ask. Starting a conversation at the right time can really take away the fear, meaning that you're able to plan. You're able to plan for the worst, but hope for the best. And it means that you don't really need to be afraid of what the future has to hold. At Riverstone, we make it less likely that you will ever need to have paid for support or care to stay independent. The reason people need long-term help and long-term care is often due to frailty. What scientific research has shown us over the last few years, and what we've seen by what we're doing at Riverstone, is actually that frailty can be prevented. It can even be reversed if you've already started to develop it, and actually with the right interventions and the right preventive approach to healthcare, we can even stop it from developing. Being part of a community, staying both interested and interesting, guards against both physical and mental decline, and that's why we have the Riverstone Club. Research has shown that people living in an integrated retirement community with a wellbeing team are less likely to ever need formal care and support to if they'd stayed living in their own home. And we also know that people who move into retirement communities requiring care at the time they move in are less likely to need that 6 months down the line than if they'd stayed in their previous home. What does the word care really mean? It's a really unusual word because it has both positive and negative connotations at the same time. We care about our residents. I care about my team. I want them to be happy. I want them to be healthy. I want them to be enjoying what they do. But once you start talking about care as in somebody needing care or being cared for in that way, it often becomes negative. It can become associated with a loss of power, a loss of independence. For the person receiving that care, it can almost take away the person they are. They're having things done to them. They've lost their choice. They've lost their feeling of being them. We don't talk about care at Riverstone. We talk about support to stay independent. This change of language puts you, or the person requiring that care, back into the centre of their world and making it all about them. It's all about empowerment and choice. You choose what you don't want to do for yourself anymore, or that maybe you need a little bit of support with, so that you can get on and enjoy the bits of your life you really want to. There's an automatic thought that if an older person needs support or help to stay independent, that has to be through a care agency. In fact, that's not true. And at Riverstone, we work with a whole range of people so that our residents can have exactly what they want and need. An example I often give is being able to get yourself up, washed, dressed, makeup on, apartment tidied, bed made in the morning, but then really being so exhausted, you actually need to have a little lie down before lunch and you haven't got the energy to go and do the thing that you wanted to do, which was the reason for getting yourself ready. This is a really good time to think about accepting some support. It's not about needing somebody to help you get washed in the morning, but actually you carry on doing those personal care things, but have somebody in to help you with the extras. Then you can carry on and enjoy your day. You are choosing to have a personal assistant to come and help you with the things that you just don't need to do for yourself anymore. This isn't about having somebody come in and take over your life, but it's allowing you to be as independent as you want to be. At Riverstone, we work with a variety of different providers who can provide this support and care. Those ones that are registered as care agencies, we only work with them if they've got the really right approach and they're all about putting independence first. When you first move into Riverstone, the wellbeing team want to get to know you. You'll meet them in your first introduction to health and wellbeing, and you'll interact with them regularly because they're here, they're in the residence, they become that health and care friend for you. You can go to them and ask them the silly question that you might not want to bother a family member or a doctor with, but is just on your mind. Through getting to know you in this way, the wellbeing team will spot if maybe you're finding things a little bit more difficult, or hopefully you will feel comfortable to go and talk to them. Because they get to know you and how you want to live and the sort of person you are and the things you enjoy doing, If it comes to a point where you do need to have some support, they will know exactly the right person for you. We work with lots of different providers here at Riverstone. We work with housekeeping companies who provide live-in housekeepers. They often also provide nannies and au pairs, but we don't really need those in our apartments. We work with care companies, and the reason these businesses are called care companies is they are registered with the Care Quality Commission. There are certain tasks that can only be carried out by businesses with Care Quality Commission registrations, and when that's the case, we work with the experts. But again, we work with a wide variety so we can match the provider to the resident. Should you actually need a little bit more input than just care and need nursing, again, we work with registered nursing agencies who can provide home nursing 24 hours a day if it's needed. There really is no limit to what can take place in your own apartment. Should you actually need somebody for a bit of companionship, for example, you like going out and about to art galleries or museums, you haven't quite got the confidence on your own, and you like somebody to chat to about the pictures, we know those companionship agencies as well. And again, we can match you to the right one who will find the right person for you. This really personalised approach that we take, everything bespoke according to the individual resident, means that nobody ever feels like they're having care. It really does feel like that support to stay independent. A question I get often asked is, what about when I need care? How I often go back to people is to say, why do you think you are going to need care? The actual numbers of people requiring care or personal support in older age are much, much lower than anybody expects. It's around 30% in the general population, and what we're expecting here at Riverstone is that around 15% of our residents at any time will be having some level of personal support. That'll be a mixture. That'll be some people who have long-term support, but for others it'll be short-term, helping them recover perhaps from an illness or injury or something that has briefly changed their circumstances, but very much with that aim of getting back to where they were before. Research has shown that living in a retirement community with an active wellbeing programme, such as we have at Riverstone, makes you less likely to ever need formal support than if you'd stayed living in your own home. And if you do need a level of support, it'll be a lower level than if you'd stayed living in your home. People ask why this is. Multiple reasons. By moving to a retirement community, we've taken away a lot of the worry that comes with owning your own house, having to worry about your roof, your gutters, security. All of that's gone. We look after that for you. Another reason people have formal care, formal support in the community is that they might be worried that nobody will know they're okay on a given day. Of course we know you're okay. We have our concierge team, and we also have our eyes open policy where we just make sure we've seen you, had contact with you every day. If we're expecting to see you but haven't, we'll come and check and just ask that you're okay and is there anything we can help with. I often get asked whether we welcome people who need care and support at Riverstone. Of course we do. We're actually quite proud to say that if you move to Riverstone, you will never need to move anywhere else. We want you to stay living in your own home as part of your community, surrounded by your friends, regardless of what life throws at you. That's one of the reasons our apartments are built and set up as they are. Any adaptations you might need can be very easily made, and there's just so much space within your apartment. We can also make sure you have whatever support or registered care or even nursing care that you need for you to stay living in your own home. People often think that if they develop a high level of need, they'll be confined to their apartment. And that could be the case if you were in a house in the general community. But having a high level of need and being in an apartment at Riverstone doesn't mean that you are no longer part of your community. It's easy to get out and about. We've got lifts, we've got wide doorways. You're still going to be surrounded by your friends. We're proud to say that you can stay living at Riverstone regardless of what life throws at you. It's not unusual for me to be asked, I already have carers, can I bring them with me? Well, of course you can. When people need support or care, it can take quite a while to build up the relationships, that's that real trust. And we wouldn't want anybody to change that just because they're moving house. So we welcome people moving into Riverstone, bringing carers they already have, even if that's up to 24-hour live-in care. Our apartments are designed so that your team can come with you. But you can move to Riverstone and suddenly start feeling less isolated because you've got the cinema, you've got our amenity space, you've got the club, you've got the talks and events. So you start becoming more than just a person who needs a lot of support. You actually are able to start living again. The Wellbeing team are here to help take away the emotional pressure from you and your family of having to arrange support or care if you need it. It's an incredibly hard thing to do. How do I know this business is any good? Do I trust this agency? Are these the right people? Because we know all of the people around us in the community, we've built up those relationships. We know who we trust. We know who the people with the really high standards are. We can really take on a lot of the legwork. We can make those personal introductions and really just take away some of that emotional pressure from you. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, how much does care cost and how do I pay for it? How much care costs, unfortunately, is one of those how long is a piece of string questions. It depends on who's providing it. It depends on how much of it you're having. For example, an hourly rate for hourly care can be lower if you're having a lot of hours. It depends on the way the business providing it works. Some ballpark figures for hourly care in central London, it's between £30 and £40 an hour. Most of the businesses charge the same amount regardless of the quality of care and support they're delivering. And that's why it's really important to work with the Wellbeing team about having the right provider for you. We know that they're good. We know that you're going to be getting value for money. A really good option, if you need a high level of support, or actually you just want that level of support to give you confidence, is live-in care. People think live-in care is really expensive, but actually compared to other types, it can be incredibly cost effective. And also having support or care at the right time can prevent that decline into frailty and deteriorations that might otherwise happen. An example of a cost for live-in support where you've got somebody there for you 24 hours a day, but they're not awake for all of that time, so you have about 10 hours of care delivered, is around £1,800 per week. Now people say to me, oh, that's an awful lot of money. But if you think how much it costs to live in a care home in central London that is anything like the standard of Riverstone, you're looking at £4,000 to £5,000 a week. So you can see that it's a lot less, plus also you are in your own environment. You're not having to move home. You're not being disempowered. You've got somebody there if you need them. You're not actually dependent on if, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones in the next door rooms also need help at the same time as you do, which is relevant in a care home and just does not apply at Riverstone. If you do come to live at Riverstone, the sensible approach to take is that you are going to have to pay for any care or support that you need yourself. To qualify for state-funded support, you have to have assets of less than £14,000, and to have any contribution, you have to have assets of less than £23,000. A very small number of people can access NHS-funded care, but unfortunately that doesn't normally cover conditions such as dementia or any of the long-term conditions. It tends to be just around end-of-life care for cancers or end-of-life care for severe neurological conditions. So the safest approach is to plan, because you will have to pay for it yourself. There are a number of non-means tested benefits though that everybody can access. Those can be quite complicated and difficult to claim, but most people actually of a certain age are entitled to them unless you are completely fully independent. We're able to support with accessing those benefits, and that can be up to £6,000 a year towards the cost of any support that you might need. There are also a wide variety of financial products out there to help people plan for and save for care and support as they get older, but also so that their families can still benefit if the money does not get spent on care or support. That's not something we can advise on as Riverstone, but we know financial advisors and financial planners who do have that knowledge, and we can introduce you to the right people so that you can have that information. Or your own financial advisor may already know all about those products. A really good question is, well, I can afford to pay for this support at home. Why should I bother moving to Riverstone? Yes, you can have that support coming into your own home, but you're probably going to be organising it yourself, or your family will be organising it for you. You've got that worry, what if I'm going on holiday? What if the carer's away? What if the carer doesn't turn up? How would we know? We will know all of that at Riverstone. And the other thing to think about is look at where you're living. Our Riverstone apartments are built and designed to age with you. So you may actually never need any changes to your apartment other than the ones that are here as you move in. So a bathroom that's essentially a wet room, wide doorways, plug sockets at the right height, an easily usable kitchen. But if you do need to have additional equipment put in place, if you need to have extra equipment put into the bathroom, it can all be easily done here at Riverstone in a way that can be much more complicated in your own home. And you wouldn't even need to go and find your own builders. If you needed to have changes made, again, we work with a number of companies who can actually put those adaptations in for you. So we're, again, just taking away some of that heartache and stress that can come with that sort of thing. Is Riverstone a care home? It's a really sensible question to ask, but we are absolutely not a care home. Riverstone is an independent retirement community. It's all about independent living because we want you to come into Riverstone at a time you are still independent and can really enjoy everything we have to offer. However, if you live at Riverstone, if you move to Riverstone, you should never need to move into a care home. It's worth remembering that the majority of people never need any significant amount of personal support, even though we often think that all older people end up needing care. That's actually just not true. But if you do need that level of support, we will help arrange that for you at Riverstone, and those professionals can come into you in your own apartment to keep you living in your own home in the way that you want to, still at the centre of your own world. It doesn't matter whether maybe you need housekeeping, somebody to come in and cook your meals. You might actually need personal care delivered by a CQC registered business. You might even need full nursing care and somebody with you 24 hours a day. All of that can happen within your own apartment at Riverstone, so you've still got your dignity and privacy and that real sense of control over your own life. It's not unusual for me to talk to older people and for them to tell me they are worried about being a burden. They are worried about their family or their friends, their children, whoever's important to them, having to take on the worries and stresses of dealing with them and finding what support they need as they get older. That's actually not something that you need to worry about if you move to Riverstone. One of the reasons we've set up our wellbeing service and we have our healthcare qualified wellbeing team are to take away those worries from you and to take away the worries from your family. We can take on that knowing who's who, introducing you to support when you need it. We can talk to the doctors in the hospital. We can help you make your doctor's appointments. We can help arrange physiotherapy. We can take away all of that weight, all of that extra bit that can sort of become loaded onto relationships as people get older and actually allow you just to stay friends with your friends, to stay parents to your adult children and take away all of that burden because we can take that weight on for you. It's often not getting old that people are scared of. What they're scared of is the bit that is between being the them that they recognise and the them that they don't recognise. And that thing is called frailty. Frailty is actually a medical term. It is associated with ageing, but what's really important to know is that it doesn't happen to everybody. The medical definition is a multi-systems decline associated with getting older and being no longer able to deal with insults and things that life throws at you, whether that's illness or injury or actually just a change in circumstances. Moving to Riverstone means that actually we can help prevent frailty. We can stop you becoming frail. As a geriatrician, when we're looking at somebody to say, does this person have frailty? Are they living with frailty? One of the really important questions we ask is there somebody that can provide help if you need it? Answering no to that question is actually a sign that you are living with frailty or at risk of becoming frail. By moving into Riverstone, you can automatically answer yes to that question because you have our team on hand, you have the concierge team, you have the wellbeing team. Other things that are important at preventing frailty, both physical frailty and cognitive frailty, are staying active, staying engaged, staying part of a community, keeping learning and having new experiences. All of those are provided through the Riverstone Club and through our fitness and strength and support programme that we have here. I'm never going to tell you that I can add years to your life, but what we are going to talk about is adding life to your years. That's what we do at Riverstone. We make sure that the time you have is spent doing the things that you want to in the way that you want to do them.